We'd like to now introduce Coach Golesh. We'll turn it over to Coach now, and then we'll take questions.
Awesome. Thank you. Just start off how fired up I am to be here. Myself, my family, incredible opportunity for us. Obviously joining Coach Heupel, being with Coach Heupel the last year, and growing within the offense and continuing to develop and go in a direction we want to go. Obviously incredible opportunity to come to Knoxville here, coordinate the offense, get us going in the right direction here as we start spring ball. These next couple of months are going to be huge for us in terms of developing the system, developing our guys, continuing to grow within the system, and honestly, continue to evaluate who fits, how they fit, both from a positional standpoint, both as an overall offensive scheme standpoint, and doing a really good job of trying to fit the scheme to what our guys can do, how we anticipate them growing within the strength program over the next 6 months. But what an incredible opportunity to come here, the tradition, the great players that have come through here, the great coaches that have come through here, and putting everything behind us and continuing embracing the past and obviously growing for the future. So couldn't be more excited. Like I said, it's a huge opportunity for me, huge opportunity for our offensive staff, huge opportunity for Coach Hype, and him assembling a staff, working together to really bring the best staff offensively that we could put together. The greatest part about our staff is there's continuity. We've worked together in some capacity. Being able to bring Jerry Mack into that is going to be an incredible opportunity for us to be able to hit the ground running. We already have, but just the communication, the verbiage, how we work together, we're ahead of the ball there as far as I'm concerned offensively with the direction we're going. The continuity part of it is huge, and Coach Hype allowing us to build it that way is going to be huge. So again, excited, fired up, can't wait. We're going to control what we can control in terms of assembling this roster to fit what we want to do. But again, building around the roster in terms of schematically what we can do here for the next year to 2 years. So from there, I'll take questions.
All right, questions for Coach. Here, let's get his mic unmuted there at the podium. 1 second, Coach. All right, a reminder, please state your name and affiliation for Coach so he can get familiar with you. We'll start with David Ubben, and then we'll go to David Pascal.
Hey, Alex, David Ubben with The Athletic. If you're a player and you're kind of preparing for spring, how do you learn this offense? How are you teaching this offense to players as they kind of prepare for spring practice?
Yeah, David, really good question. You know, the way we play is unique. I think that's probably been highly publicized. People that have looked into what we were doing at UCF, it's unique. You got to start big picture in terms of how we play, both schematically and tempo, and then start to hone in on the run game, the pass game scheme part of it. So we've already started on that part of it, big picture, and then working back down to the fine details of how we operate. But operationally, being unique, that's where it all started. Lining up, splits, tempo, how we call things. You're starting at bare minimum ground zero because it is so different than what the guys that are currently here have been used to. But big picture down to small picture, and then as we get closer to spring and throughout spring, really fine-tuning the fundamental technique part of everything that we're doing. But throwing it from a big picture standpoint at them and then pulling back and really breaking it down little by little.
How long do you feel like it takes for guys to get comfortable in this offense where, you know, I guess people talk about you're playing without thinking, but how long do you feel like it takes for guys to feel like, okay, we're just playing football now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think until you get out there and do it day one of spring ball, mid-March, late March here, until you get out and physically see it, control it, run it. I think it's really hard to simulate the actual speed of how fast we want to play. So you're coaching it, you're teaching it, you're explaining it, you're walking through it. But I think until there's wood in the fire on that deal, and you're out there and you're by yourself, no coaches around, I think it's really hard. My hope is by practice 4, 5, 6 of spring, we are hitting at a high tempo. But just like any scheme, it doesn't really matter. Repetition over everything. The more reps these young guys have at it, the better we're going to be. And it's just force feeding them the information, letting them make mistakes, and then correcting the mistakes off film. So the hope would be by somewhere the middle of spring, we're operating at a high clip. But we're just going to continue to coach it. Obviously, it's a process-based deal in terms of little by little continuing to build. And obviously, by the time we get to August and September, we're hitting at full cylinder. So, but the hope would be middle of spring.
Alex, David Pascal down here at the Chattanooga Times Free Press. When you think of UCF and like Dylan and McKenzie before him, you think of a lot of athleticism at the quarterback position. Have you kind of studied who you've got already, and how much of you talked about fitting the offense, you do have some different body types and styles at quarterback that you're inheriting. How much is that going to play a factor into what you guys ultimately end up doing?
It's a really good question, Dave, too. It's going to be a matter of finding the guy that can do both at a really high rate. There's guys here that have played. You got Hendon, who played at Virginia Tech considerable amount. It's going to be a matter of the same way, force feeding it, and then seeing who can handle it from a mental aspect, and then obviously who can handle it from a physical aspect. I think the way the offense is built, you don't have to say that it's got to be ultra mobile quarterback. You don't have to say it's got to be a pocket passer. I think so much of this offense revolves around the quarterback and being able to manage it, being able to operate within the system. It happens really fast. And really, that's across the board at every position. You've got to be able to process information quickly. You've got to be able to process defensive looks quickly. And so I think at the quarterback position in particular, who can grasp it the quickest, who can operate within the system, and then who can excel within the system. I don't think we have that answer. I know we don't have that answer right now, and I don't think we'll have that answer at the end of spring. I think this is going to be, at that position, specifically a 6-month process to get to week 1 and roll with the guy that you feel is the most prepared and the most functional in terms of running the offense. I think all those guys just watching through, I mean, when I say we've investigated that room specifically, going back and watching film here, going back and watching high school film, talking to high school coaches, talking to the college coaches in Hendon's case, and really trying to have at least an idea of what the guys are capable of, both from a mental aspect and a physical aspect, and then growing within our system to see how guys can handle it. Even Salter's coming in. What is he capable of? That whole room, those guys are so uniquely different. I think you're going to try to find the guy that can do the best job of operating within the system. And at the end of the day, it's who can create plays, who can not turn the ball over, and who can continue to get us positive yardage. If it's with their feet, great. If it's with their hand, with their arm, awesome. For us, I think Coach Heupel will tell you the same thing. He's played in a similar system with different types of quarterbacks. So it's going to be a matter of operating within the system and being able to create plays. And the way we're built, the way we're going to continue to develop how we're building it is being able to do it with your arm or your legs. Obviously, young man that can run certainly helps. It creates a different dimension to the entire offense, but we can adjust and go off of that. It's the same thing from a personnel standpoint. What are we personnel? At the end of the day, we're going to play with the best 11 guys on the field, and we've got the ability to adjust and play in different sets and vary tempos based on that. So the biggest thing here, especially at the quarterback position, is put a bunch on them, make them learn it, see how they grow and process information within the system, and then adjust off of that as we actually get ready to game plan.
Blake Topmeyer, then Brent Hubbs.
Hey, Alex, Blake Topmeyer with the Knoxville News Sentinel. During your time at Iowa State, I was wondering, what were your impressions of what Josh was doing offensively while he was at Missouri and UCF, and what made you want to be a part of kind of how he approaches offense?
Yeah, Blake, fascinating. You when you're coaching somewhere off season, you end up coming to decisions on who do you want to study, who do you want to be, who do you want to look at to see if you can steal something, right? This, our whole profession, you're stealing ideas from everybody else. So the offense Josh was running at Mizzou, then obviously growing within the similar system at UCF, I was always fascinated by. Really, we were as a staff when I was at Iowa State. So I studied it. And as you study it and you're fascinated by certain aspects of it, you tend to, on a Saturday night, if you play an early game, you'll flip it on and watch it. I was always fascinated by how the tempo operated and the variety of things you can do. Really, really balanced run pass. Everything still starts with running the football. So there's a lot of those core principles that you grow up and grow within the profession, that things you want to do. How it operated from a tempo standpoint, I was always fascinated by. So I always watched it from afar, studied it. Really, probably my last 2 years at Iowa State, really dove into studying it, incorporated a lot of those concepts. And so from afar, watching it, seeing it grow with two different quarterbacks, I was fascinated by it. So when the job came open, I was so intrigued to dive into it. I think what makes Coach Heupel so unique is he's kind of lived different lives offensively, from what he played in, from when he was a tight end coach to a quarterback coach, then being able to coordinate it himself, and then moving on to Utah State and Missouri and then UCF, just how his process has grown into what it got to at UCF his first couple of years there. I think what's unique about Coach Hype is his humility in terms of listening to ideas, seeing ideas, and 99% of the time when I bring something up, he's done it. He's run some version of it. I think that's what makes him so unique, is that never do you bring something up and it's the first time he's seen it or heard of it. And so his ability to adapt, his ability to take ideas, us bouncing ideas off of each other. He's a football guy. We'll sit all day and talk ball. Not the last probably 2.5 weeks here, but in a normal situation setting, he is an incredible mind to sit and bounce ideas off of and really go round and round until you come up with what you believe is the best way to do it. And he's super supportive. I feel like I'm super supportive to him. It's a really, really good match in that regard.
Brent.
Coach, this is Brent Hobbs with VolQuest and Rivals.com. Simple question. Everybody plays spread. Everybody plays fast. Why does this offense work, and why has it been able to work everywhere that it's kind of been in place, as a follow-up to Blake's question? And then secondly, how much faster is the install capable of doing, because you guys as a coaching staff are so familiar with each other and you've
I think
together before?
The second part of your question I hit on earlier. I didn't mean to cut you off there if I did, but I hit on it earlier. Our staff continuity, the fact that Glenn Ellerby, Joey Halsley, those two spots specifically, the quarterbacks and the offensive line, those guys having been in our system, Cody getting hired at UCF and us spending some time with him and really going through the interview process with Cody there, then obviously coming here, that part of it makes it super easy. That was a huge part of us coming together, was the ability, one, that we're all on the same page, two, that we're all in this thing together. There's no egos in that room. And so the ability to talk through it, communicate through it, study it, and then be able to teach it to our young guys is absolutely huge. Jerry Mack, hiring Jerry, the biggest component to us picking Jerry and then at the end of it going after him was the fact that he's been a coordinator. He's seen it done certain different ways. He's been a head coach. For me in that room, I wanted a guy that had done it, been in charge, somebody that could help me as we navigate obviously a new conference, new defenses. And so him really coming in and learning it, and then us being able to teach it. Because I think once you know it, once you've been in it, obviously the teaching part of it becomes easier. So for us to be able to hit the ground running, I think that part was absolutely huge. In terms of everybody running spread offenses, I guess I'm not 100% sure on everybody being the term there, but we are, however you want to classify what we do, our system allows us to play really fast. Our system of communication, our system of installation, our system of how the quarterback is taught is what allows us to play fast. So as we study other people's schemes, as we study other people in terms of how they operate, we have the flexibility to be really multiple. So I think sometimes it maybe gets generalized into a box. I think from a media perspective, it's easy to kind of put us in a certain box. At the end of the day, we want to be really balanced. We want to run the ball. We want to throw the ball when it's available. We want to run plays into good looks. We want to throw plays into good looks. And at the end of the day, we're trying to create matchups to be able to go and score points. So whether you want to call it spread, whether you want to call it tempo, whatever it is, I try not to put it in a box because we can be so multiple. We have been so multiple. And the uniqueness of our staff as well, kind of guys coming from different places, Cody coming from Auburn, me coming from Iowa State a year ago, Glenn and Joey being there already. Now you've got Coach Mack, who's coming from a different system as well. But being able to put it all together, at the end of the day, until we get out there in spring and really see what these guys are capable of doing, we won't really know what we look like. We know systematically what we want to be. We know from a tempo standpoint what we want to be. But until we get out there and we figure out who are the best 11 players, at the end of the day, we got to get our best 11 out there and we got to play fast. And that'll give us the best chance to win as we continue to build the roster.
Really quickly, two more questions for Coach Golesh, Patrick Brown, and Jordan Kramer.
Hey, Alex, Patrick Brown with Vols 24/7. You've obviously talked a lot about the offense here today. You coach with the Tennessee's new defensive coordinator, Tim Banks at Illinois. I'm wondering, what do you remember about that time with him, and had you kept in touch or followed his career since you guys parted ways from there? And what was it like seeing him back here at Tennessee?
Yeah, Tim Banks is one of the best men I've ever been around in the profession. And we were together for 4 years, some good, some bad, but learned and grew a lot. I was really young at that point. I leaned on Tim in a lot of ways. Be honest with you, his wife, Robin, my wife really looks up to. She's kind of been through it. At that point, I was 26, 27 years old. My wife really looked up to his wife because she had been through the growing pains of the profession. But Tim has always been a guy that I can lean on, always been a shoulder to listen, I guess an ear to listen to. I didn't put my head on his shoulder. But one of the really, really classy, professional, sharp people in our profession. We have stayed in touch. It's in our profession, you try to catch up in the off season, see each other at camp, see each other on the road recruiting. But I've always respected how Tim goes about his business, how he approaches his job, his career, his family. He is exactly what you would want in a coworker, in a friend. So yes, the answer to all those questions is yes. We were close when we were there. We've certainly remained close. And I can't tell you, gave him a big hug yesterday when he got in, how excited I am to go to work with him. And obviously that relationship is important as we grow through spring and fall camp to be able to help each other and give looks and give each other different things that we need in terms of schematically. But I can't tell you how excited I am and excited to see his growth in the last 5 years too. I've gone my separate way, have grown in a lot of ways. And he has as well, has gone his separate way and grown in a lot of ways. We've both had a lot of success in our own ways. And I so fired up, couldn't be more fired up to have the man he is, the coach he is, the leader he is, leading that side of the ball. I think it's going to be a really, really good match. I think when both sides are on the same page, when both sides really are playing complementary football, I think it's huge. And our previous relationship can only be positive in a sense that we can bounce ideas off each other, but we can also play complementary football when it gets to playing football in real games, in real situations, when things are hard, when things are tough and adversity hits, when you know the guys you're rolling with, makes it a lot easier. You got a lot higher chance of having success.
Last question, Jordan, before we get Cody up there.
Hi, Alex. Jordan Kramer, WATE. As far as the tight ends go, ideally in your offense, what is their role in terms of the passing game?
Yeah, I knew that question was coming. I was prepared for it. Really good question. Like I mentioned earlier, at the end of the day, and I think it's probably any scheme that you talk about, you're going to put the best 11 guys on the field, and you are going to try to create mismatches to adapt skill sets of guys at every position. So it depends on who you have, depends on who the guys are, depends on their skill sets. You would like to have guys that can play every down for you at the tight end position. I think tight ends are an integral part of our offense, integral part of any offense. But I think you're also going to adjust to their skill set. Going back to my time at Iowa State, we had a group of tight ends that were 3 of our 6 best pass catchers on the team. We used them that way. Our last year at UCF, the tight end group we had weren't as good a mismatch guys as potentially our receivers. So we didn't use them that way. I think the ability to adapt when you're running the offense is the biggest part of it. So not avoiding the question, but going back to what I had said earlier, we got to figure out what these guys can do. I'm super fired up about the room here in terms of what I've been able to see with the guys we have. There's 3 guys that have played a ton of football in that room. So now it's figuring out exactly what they can do in our system, fitting those guys into the system, and then figuring out how many do you have, what are their skill sets, and then at the end of the day, putting them in the best positions to win. So as a pass catcher, if we got a guy that can stretch the field, that can win in intermediate routes, then we would use them a ton as pass catchers. If we don't, then we wouldn't. And that's not a cliche coach talk answer. You're going to put the guys in the best positions to win. It's going to be the case at running back. It's going to be the case in quarterback. It's going to be the case at receiver. And so as much as we're capable of doing at the position the skill set allows, Jordan, I think that's how the answer will come. And I think you look back at Coach Heupel's lineage with tight ends, going back to Missouri and what they had there, what they recruited, what they developed there, what he inherited at UCF, and then what I came into a year ago, and now coming in here. I think every situation was really unique at that position specifically. But at the end of the day, if you're asking what would we like? We would like guys that can be multiple, guys that can flex out, guys that can attach, guys that can play in the backfield, to give you the ability to create mismatches with size and speed on interior guys like linebackers and safety. So, but I am really excited about this group, at least from what I've seen so far, from what the guys have done in the past, and really from what we've seen in winter workouts so far.
Thank you, Coach.